The man I'd been in love with for 9 years was getting married. To me. At the altar, he leaned in to kiss me, but what he whispered was, "Ruoli, I'm sorry. I'm marrying you in my brother's place." A month ago, his brother got into a car accident and was left in a vegetative state. I raised my hand to slap him, but he caught my wrist. He forced the wedding band onto my finger, his voice dark and menacing. "Sister-in-law, I'm sorry. Just pretend I'm my brother." After the reception, we were alone in the bridal suite. I stood frozen, still in my wedding gown. Chiyu yanked off his tie and sat on the sofa, staring at me from across the coffee table. "Why did you lie to me?" I asked, my voice hoarse. He looked back at me, his expression tight with restraint. "My brother is lying in a hospital bed in a coma, but the marriage contract between the Chi and Wen families cannot be broken." "So you decided to marry me for him?" I screamed at him. "Did you ever once ask if I was willing?" Chiyu's gaze was fixed on me. "If I had asked, would you have said yes?" A bitter ache spread through my chest. I had been secretly in love with him for 9 years, never daring to tell a soul. The moment I found out I was going to marry him, I was ecstatic. But it was all a lie. "You bastard. You didn't run from the altar," he reminded me, his voice low. "That counts as your consent." A lump formed in my throat. It was true. I hadn't run. The Chis and the Wens are two of the most prominent families in A City. With all those guests and the live media coverage. As the eldest daughter of the Wen family, if I had bolted, both our family businesses would have taken a hit. They were banking on me to protect the family name. At that thought, my eyes began to burn. Chiyu's thick lashes fluttered. "What's done is done," he said, his voice faltering for just a second. "You are my brother's wife now. The young mistress of the Chi family." I was trembling all over, and tears began to stream down my face. "Chiyu," I choked out, "you will regret this." He looked away, his tone turning to ice. I had no choice. He turned and walked to the door. "Be ready tomorrow morning. We're going to the hospital to see my brother." The door slammed shut behind him. I collapsed onto the floor, the ring on my finger suddenly blinding. It was all so absurd. I would never accept this marriage. The next morning, Jiu appeared in the living room right on time. He'd changed into a black suit, his expression so calm it was as if nothing had happened. Seeing me come downstairs, he said flatly, "Let's go." We were silent the entire ride. It wasn't until we reached the hospital entrance that I finally spoke. "Chiyu, have you ever thought about what that makes me if your brother wakes up?" He didn't even break his stride. "He's not going to wake up." "How can you be so sure?" I grabbed his arm. "You didn't. Don't jump to conclusions," he said flatly. The smell of disinfectant was strong in the hospital room. His brother lay quietly, tubes running in and out of his body. Chiyu stood by the bed, his composure wavering for a moment before he regained his calm. "Brother, I brought Ruali to see you." I watched as he skillfully cleaned and massaged his brother, his movements so gentle and precise, nothing like the madman who forced me into this marriage. On the way back, I pressed him again. "What did you mean by that? Why are you so sure he won't wake up?" Chiyu's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "The doctors said the chances are slim." "Slim? Not impossible?" I stared at him. "But what if he does? How will you explain marrying your own sister-in-law?" He slammed on the brakes and turned to look at me, his eyes holding an almost fanatical certainty. "There is no what if," he said, each word deliberate. "I will never let him wake up." My heart plummeted. "What did you do?" But he didn't answer, just started the car again. "You don't need to concern yourself with this." When the car stopped in front of the villa, he didn't get out right away. Instead, he handed me an envelope. "My brother left this before his accident," he said, his tone even. "It was supposed to be given to you on your wedding day." I opened the envelope. Inside was a marriage declaration, stating that if his brother could not fulfill the marriage contract, his younger brother, Chiyu, was to marry me in his place. It was his brother's signature. It was dated the day before the accident. My head snapped up. Had his brother known the accident was going to happen? "Ruali, we can't disappoint my brother." Chiyu took my hand. "Come on, it's time to go get our marriage license." According to the plan, today was the day we were supposed to get it. Our license? I asked. In your name, or your brother's? Chiyu looked into my eyes. Mine. I'm not going, I refused, my face hardening. The wedding was held in his brother's name, but the marriage license would be in his. If word of this ever got out, it's my reputation that would be ruined. Chiyu fell silent for a moment, then surprisingly, didn't push. All right. Then he added, I'll take you back to your family's home. The drive back to my family's home was long and oppressive. He didn't speak again until the car stopped in front of my family's villa. Your parents know everything. Don't make them worry. I sneered, you think this makes you a good son-in-law? He didn't answer. Instead, he got out first and opened my door. The gesture was impeccably considerate. My mom was already waiting at the door. The moment she saw us, her eyes reddened. She pulled me into a hug, patting my back gently. Oh, Ruali, you've been through so much. My dad and Chiyu talked in the study for a long time. Swallowing my anger, I asked my mom, why do I have to go through with this wedding? Even if something happened to the older Chi brother, does Chiyu really have to marry me in his place? My mom sighed. Ruali, our families are too deeply entangled in business. The Chis can't afford any instability right now, and neither can we. She lowered her voice. Besides, this was Auntie Chi's idea. You know how superstitious she is. She's doing all this in hopes that a happy event will counteract the bad luck. I frowned. That's just superstition. They should be looking for better doctors, not planning weddings. Regardless, this marriage has to go forward as planned. I pressed my lips together. Then his brother's car accident. Shoo. My mom clamped her hand over my mouth, glancing frantically toward the study. Don't you dare speculate about that. Just then, the study door opened. My dad and Chiyu walked out. My dad clapped Chiyu on the shoulder, his voice graver than I had ever heard. From now on, I'm entrusting Ruali and the Wen family to you. Chiyu bowed slightly. I will. He lifted his head to look at me, his gaze deep and inscrutable. He walked up to me and held out his hand. His tone was gentle, yet left no room for refusal. Let's go home, Ruali. I looked at his outstretched hand, then at my parents' worried yet helpless expressions. A chill went through me. Ruali, you should go with Chiyu now, my parents urged gently. I realized then that in this marriage, what I wanted never mattered. Everyone had a tacit understanding, treating me like a mascot for our two families. And it seemed I'd never had a choice at all. I was chilled to the bone, even after I got in the car. Chiyu's hands were gripping the steering wheel. I know you hate me. I instinctively glanced at him. He continued, if I'd had a choice, I would have stayed out of your life forever and never given you a reason to despise me. But the marriage was set in stone. We're married now. From now on, can you try not to hate me? His last sentence was a humble, almost pathetic plea. My heart ached as if it had been soaked in acid. How could I possibly hate him? All my life, I'd been desperate to see him. I had planned to confess to him on our wedding night. To tell him I'd been in love with him for 9 years. But now, my throat burned as if it were corroded. I couldn't get the words out. Good, as long as you know. I gritted my teeth, but tears welled up in my eyes against my will. Chiyu, there's nothing I hate more than being lied to. His body went rigid for a second, then he let out a low laugh, a sound filled with an indescribable desolation. I'm sorry. I bit my lip and turned my head away, refusing to look at him. Your apology isn't sincere in the slightest. Then what do you want me to do? He asked. My mind went blank. It felt like I was in a maze with no way out, no matter which path I took. After a long moment, I finally managed to say, "Humph. You're not to touch me until I forgive you." Chiyu sighed. All right. I'll respect that. I let out a long breath, my voice a little unsteady as I asked, Chiyu, were you really okay with just going along with their arrangement and marrying anyone? Wasn't there someone you wanted to marry? He was silent for a long moment before he finally spoke. It wasn't just anyone. Ruoli, the only person I've ever wanted to marry is you. My heart jolted. I whipped my head around to face him, disbelieving. You, like me? The corners of his mouth lifted in a strangely gentle smile. Yes, I like you. Ever since you were 16, when you smiled and shoved an umbrella into my hands while I was stuck in the rain, I've been watching you from afar. I froze. He remembered something from that long ago? Back then, nobody respected me. Only you. A flicker of pain crossed his eyes. There was no disdain in your eyes, just a pure light. That little bit of light was what got me through the hardest times. So, even if you hate me, despise me, find me disgusting. He stared at me, his every word a vow and a curse. I'll accept it all. I wanted to marry you, even if I had to do it under someone else's name. In that moment, I could clearly see it, beneath his calm exterior was a love as deep as an abyss. It was heavy, obsessive, and all-consuming. My heart felt like it was being torn in two. I hated him. I hated him for deceiving me. But 9 years of secret love couldn't just vanish overnight. Love and hate tangled violently inside me, threatening to tear me apart. I bit down hard on my lip, sobbing silently. The car moved on in silence. A long, heavy silence stretched between us. Then I heard his low, hoarse voice, perfectly clear. Even if I had to do it all over again 10,000 times, I would still choose the most despicable way to stay by your side. I clapped a hand over my mouth, the tears coming in a fresh, violent wave. Chiyu and I fell into a bizarre dynamic. In public, we put on a show of being a loving newlywed couple. Mr. Chi and Miss Wan are such a perfect match. Yes, he's so accomplished, and she's so beautiful. The union of the Chi and Wan families, a true powerhouse merger. It will take them to the next level. Our smiles were stiff as we listened to the flattery. But in private, we were silent. He came home at the same time every day and ate dinner in silence across from me. Gradually, we grew accustomed to each other's presence. At night, he would curl his long frame onto the small sofa in the master bedroom to sleep. One night, a muffled, pained groan startled me awake. Chiyu was clutching his chest, looking like he was having a nightmare. Chiyu? I nudged him. His eyes flew open. He threw his arms around me, his strength terrifying. Ugh. The air was crushed from my lungs. Let me go. He cried out, still half-conscious, Ruoli, don't go, don't leave me. I pounded on his arms. Finally, he snapped out of it. Ruoli. His voice trembled as he stared at his reddened hands. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Did I hurt you? Let me see. He gently checked me over, his touch so soft he seemed like a different person from moments before. His eyes were filled with lingering fear and anguish. You. My throat burned, and my voice came out as a rasp. What in the world is wrong with you? His body tensed. It's nothing. Just a nightmare. He was obviously lying. But seeing how fragile he looked right then, the question caught in my throat. He didn't sleep for the rest of the night, just sat on the sofa with his eyes open. The next day, he seemed back to normal, quiet and reserved as always, but he went into the kitchen himself to make me a soothing pear soup for my throat. That afternoon, he got a phone call. He glanced at the caller ID, his brow furrowed slightly, and he stepped out onto the balcony to take it. On some strange impulse, I crept to the balcony door. His voice, thick with panic, drifted in on the wind. What did you say? That's impossible. Is it confirmed? When did it happen? The person on the other end must have said something, because Chiyu slammed his fist into the railing with a dull thud. He abruptly ended the call. His back was to me, his shoulders rigid. His entire body was like a fully drawn bow, humming with shock and a terrible, looming dread. He stood frozen in place for a long time. When he finally came back inside, his face was paler than I had ever seen it, his lips trembling slightly. What is it? I asked instinctively, my own heart starting to pound for no reason. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He swallowed hard before finally forcing out a few words. My brother is awake. Just then, Chiyu's phone rang again. He jolted as if waking from a trance and snatched up the phone, his voice heavy with suppressed emotion. Dad. Chiyu's father's joyful voice came through the phone. Your brother just regained consciousness. He's still having trouble speaking, but the first thing he asked about was the wedding. He was so happy when he heard you went through with it in his place. He said he wants to thank you for marrying Ruoli for him. The color drained from Chiyu's face, leaving it ashen. The knuckles of the hand holding the phone cracked. The voice on the phone continued, the words drilling clearly into my ears. You should bring Ruoli over now. Your brother said he wants to see his bride with his own eyes. Chiyu's brother was awake. The words struck me like a bolt of lightning. The hospital room was silent save for the beeping of the machines. Chiyu's brother, Chi-sen, was propped up against the pillows. His face was pale, but he wore a gentle smile. His eyes found mine, and he patted the edge of the bed. Ruoli, come sit. I instinctively glanced at Chiyu, standing in the corner. He was looking down, his face cast in shadow, his expression unreadable. I walked stiffly to the side of the bed. Chi-sen's hand was cool as he gently took my fingertips in his. The gesture was both natural and intimate. This must have been hard on you, he said, his voice weak but clear. I never imagined this is how I'd end up marrying you. I froze and tried to pull my hand back, but he held on, his grip gentle. Chiyu. He turned to his brother in the corner, his voice filled with a warm, older brotherly gratitude. Thank you for taking care of the most important thing for me. Chiyu looked up, a storm of pain churning in his eyes. Bro, his voice was rough. Don't thank me. It's just, good that you're awake. But Chi-sen seemed not to notice. He turned back to me with a smile, his thumb tracing the band of my wedding ring. The ring, are you used to it? My fingers twitched, and the ring suddenly felt searing hot against my skin. It's fine, I heard myself answer, my voice flat. Good. Chi-sen nodded, satisfied. He looked back at Chiyu, his tone light. Chiyu, from now on, Ruoli is officially your sister-in-law. You need to help your brother take good care of her. His face was deathly pale, but the rims of his eyes were red, as if they might bleed. I will. Bro. He turned almost in a panic and fled the room. The door clicked shut. I sat on the edge of the bed, my fingers lying ice-cold in Chi-sen's palm. Chi-sen let out a soft sigh and squeezed my hand. He's been like that since he was little, he said, his tone a mix of fond exasperation. Always keeps everything bottled up. He only makes it harder on himself. My heart clenched painfully. My chaotic thoughts suddenly dragged me back to a memory of Chiyu. It was my sophomore year. I'd rejected this arrogant jerk at school, and his cronies cornered me in an alley after the final bell. They snatched my backpack, dumped all my books and supplies on the ground, and started stomping all over them. Vile words splattered over me like thick, sticky mud. My back was pressed against the cold, damp wall, and I was trembling all over. Just as the ringleader was smirking, reaching out to grab my uniform, a figure shot in from the mouth of the alley. It was Chiyu. He didn't say a word, just shoved the guy away and yanked me behind him. His frame was slight, but his back was like a wall that had suddenly sprung up, shielding me from all their malice. Chiyu? You've got some nerve butting in, you dirty little bastard. They obviously knew him, their tone dripping with even more contempt and provocation. Chiyu remained silent, just glared at them, his fists clenched so tight they trembled. You're asking for it. Fists and kicks rained down on him. He grunted with each blow but didn't back down an inch, keeping me shielded in the furthest corner behind him. I heard the sickening thuds of fists against his back. I heard his ragged gasps for air. I saw blood begin to seep from his temple, mixing with the sweat trickling down his face. He was one person against so many, but he obstinately refused to move from in front of me. It wasn't until a security guard shouted from the mouth of the alley that the group finally scattered, muttering curses. Chiyu staggered, bracing a hand against the wall to steady himself. Panting, he turned to look at me, his eyes filled with an urgent concern. Are you okay? That was the first time he'd ever really looked at me, the first time he'd ever spoken to me. His voice was hoarse, but it was like a beam of light that cut through all my fear. Tears streamed down my face as I shook my head, wanting to say thank you but unable to make a sound. He silently bent over, wincing in pain, and picked up my scattered books one by one. He dusted them off, carefully placed them back in my backpack, and handed it to me. From now on, don't walk down alleys like this alone, he murmured, not looking at me again. He dragged his battered body away, disappearing step by step out of the alley's mouth. I clutched the backpack, still warm from his touch, and stared at the few dark red drops of his blood on the ground. I cried for a long time. From that day on, my eyes never left his back. I knew he was always alone. I knew people always pointed and whispered behind his back. I knew his life was harder than anyone else's. But I also knew this: the boy who took a beating in that alley without backing down an inch had the purest, bravest soul in the world. The memory came to an abrupt halt. I looked at the man in front of me. He was still just as pure. After we returned from the hospital, the air in the villa seemed to have frozen. Chiyu stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, his silhouette desolate. I was still reeling from the shock of Chisen waking up when I heard him speak, his voice hoarse. "They want me to go back." I froze. "Back where?" "Abroad." He turned around. His face was blank, but his eyes were a desolate wasteland. "The flight is first thing in the morning." "So soon?" My heart clenched. "Why?" "Your brother just woke up." "Doesn't the company still need you?" "Need me?" He scoffed, his tone thick with self-mockery. "When has the Chi family ever needed me? Now that the rightful one is awake, it's only natural for me, the replacement they keep in the shadows, to return to my original place." He took a few steps closer, his gaze heavy as it landed on my face, as if he were trying to carve every line of it into his memory. I should never have come back. If my brother hadn't had his accident, I might never have been allowed to set foot in Nanching again. He said it so calmly, as if he were talking about someone else. "Mrs. G, my mother in name only, has an episode whenever she sees me. My very existence is the Chi family scandal. Chi was the child Mrs. Chi had after she was raped. He was not of Chi family blood." I suddenly remembered how, after he turned 18, he was always abroad by himself. He never came home, not even for the holidays. It wasn't that he didn't want to, he wasn't allowed. Then this time. A sharp pain shot through my chest. This time, father summoned me back on short notice. They needed a son to step in, to stabilize the situation, to save the marriage alliance with the Wynn family. He tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Now that my brother's awake, everything is back on track. And I'm supposed to disappear." The look he gave me was complex, impossible to read. "It's for the best," he said suddenly, his voice barely a whisper. I couldn't tell if he was talking to me or to himself. "Once I'm gone, you won't have to look at this face you hate so much anymore." With that, he turned and headed for the stairs, his steps never faltering. But my heart felt as if it had been suddenly hollowed out, and a cold wind howled through the empty space. He was just going to leave? Just like that? After dragging me to hell with this sham of a wedding, he was just going to walk away? Leaving me alone to face my newly awakened husband and this absolute mess. An overwhelming sense of absurdity and a wave of nameless panic seized me. "Chi-yu!" I cried out. He stopped halfway up the stairs but didn't turn around. I stared at his solitary, resolute back, the words caught in my throat. I couldn't force a single one out. To ask him what I ever was to him? To ask if he could so easily let go of that obsessive affection he'd claimed to have? Dead silence filled the air. After a few seconds, he still didn't turn. Step by step, he disappeared around the landing. As if he were truly and utterly leaving my world for good. After Chiyu left, the villa felt unsettlingly empty. I sat by the window where he'd stood last night, staring out into the heavy darkness. The hollow in my chest grew colder, the ache more distinct. 9 years of a secret crush, followed by a forced marriage. But only when he was truly gone, leaving so decisively, did I realize that what I'd buried beneath all the hate was always love. I was furious that he'd lied to me, but I was more terrified that he would actually leave my life for good. I love him. I love Chiyu, the man with the awkward social standing who was nonetheless brilliant. I love the lunatic who loved me in the clumsiest, most infuriating way possible. The realization shot me to my feet, and I bolted out the door. I had to tell my parents. I want Chiyu. It doesn't matter that Chisen is awake. It doesn't matter if the Chi family won't accept him. I only want him. The lights of the Wen family villa were all ablaze. I burst into the living room, my voice urgent. "Dad, Mom, I'm in love with Chiyu. I want to be with him." The living room fell silent. My father lowered his newspaper, his expression terrifyingly grim. My mother shot to her feet and grabbed my arm. "Ruali. What are you talking about?" "I'm not. I know what you're worried about, but his brother is awake now, so Chiyu and I. Quiet. My father slammed his hand on the table, his voice sharp as he cut me off. Do you have any idea what you're saying? Chisun is lying in a hospital bed, and you are, in name, still his wife. And now you want to be with his brother? Have you no regard for the Wen family's reputation? But his brother and I have no relationship. That wedding was a sham to begin with. That doesn't matter. My mother gripped my arm, her voice tight with anger and panic. Ruoli, get a grip. Chiyu is not good enough for you. Everyone knows about his origins, about how he came into this world. It's a stain on his name that will never wash away. The Chi family won't have him, and the Wen family certainly can't accept a son-in-law like that. Mom. None of that is his fault. Does it matter if it's his fault? My father asked, his gaze cold and unwavering. All that matters are the facts. And as long as Chisun is alive, you are his wife in the eyes of the law. Do you want to make a laughingstock of both our families? Do you want the Chi family to retaliate against us? He walked right up to me, his tone absolute and leaving no room for argument. Get that idea out of your head. As long as Chisun is alive, you can marry anyone in the world, but you will never marry Chiyu. We will not allow it. I looked at my parents' cold, resolute faces, and the fire in my veins turned to ice. I realized then that there was something more hopeless than Chiyu leaving, the uncrossable chasm between us, a chasm that existed even though we loved each other. It was a chasm called birthright, called convention, called family honor. It was called, his brother was still alive. I don't know how I managed to drive back to the villa. Every word from my parents was like an ice pick, piercing my heart again and again. The night rain fell, blurring the car windows and my vision. For all its vastness, the world had no path for him and me. I pushed open the heavy villa door to complete darkness. But in the dead silence, the faint, warm aroma of food drifted through the air. I froze. A soft click. The warm glow of a candle suddenly bloomed in the corner of the dining room, pushing back a small patch of the darkness. Chiyu stood by the dining table. On it were a few simple, home-cooked dishes, still faintly steaming. A few candles burned in the center, softening the lines of his profile, but his eyes held an almost deferential sort of caution. Hadn't he left? You're back, he asked, his voice a little hoarse. I made something to eat. I stared at him, a lump in my throat, unable to make a sound. The scene before me felt like a beautiful illusion, one that would shatter at the slightest touch. He pulled out a chair for me, the movement awkward. I don't know if you'll like it. When I was abroad, I'd try making your favorite dishes whenever I missed you. He paused, his voice dropping lower. I always thought about the day I could sit down with you, out in the open, and just have a proper meal together. I walked over slowly, my eyes falling on the plate of slightly clumsy-looking braised ribs and the steamed fish, dishes I had offhandedly mentioned I liked years and years ago. He'd remembered everything. He lifted his gaze, and the candlelight danced in the depths of his eyes. Ruali, he said my name, his voice so soft it was as if he were afraid of startling something. Can you stay and eat this meal with me? He forced a smile that looked more like he was about to cry. After this, I'll go. And after that, there probably won't be another chance. The rain outside grew heavier, beating against the glass as if counting down our final moments together. The candlelight flickered, wrapping him in a fragile halo. I looked at him, at this meal he had made himself, one he had perhaps practiced making so many times. The pain in my chest was suffocating. Slowly, I pulled out the chair and sat down. A faint light flared in his eyes, like a dying man grasping at his last shred of hope. He sat down across from me, ever so carefully. He picked up his chopsticks, selected a piece of fish, and meticulously deboned it before placing it in my bowl. Try it, he murmured, a faint tremor in his voice. It might not be as good as what you'd get from a real chef. I lowered my head, staring at the piece of snow-white fish in my bowl as my vision blurred completely. It's not. It's delicious. It was the best fish I'd ever had. We ate our dinner very slowly that night. So slowly that the candles burned all the way down. Chiyu, the truth is, I love you, too. I've been in love with you for 9 years. The next morning, I woke to an icy silence. The space beside me was empty, long gone cold. Only a faint indentation on the pillow proved that the man who had humbly begged me to have one meal with him last night was not a figment of my imagination. My heart plummeted. I ran out of the bedroom barefoot. The downstairs was empty. The dining room was spotless, as if last night's candlelit dinner had never happened. The only thing left behind was a note on the coffee table. The cold, sharp script was his usual style, but it was written with a rushed, messy hand. Ruali, I'm gone. Take care of yourself. I wish you happiness. 3 short lines, like an ice pick plunging viciously into my chest, a chill instantly spreading through my entire body. He was really gone. He didn't even have the courage to say goodbye in person. I barely had time to think. I grabbed my car keys and bolted out the door. The airport terminal was a surging sea of people. I frantically scanned the crowds, my heart pounding like a drum. Finally, at the back of the line for the international security checkpoint, I saw that achingly familiar back. He was wearing a black overcoat, his tall frame radiating an unspeakable loneliness. He stood quietly in line, moving forward one slow step at a time, getting closer and closer to the security gate that would separate us forever. I stopped, watching him from a distance, across the surging river of people. My throat felt like it was being squeezed shut. I couldn't make a sound. Call out to him? And then what? I have parents who love me, family responsibilities I can't escape, and a husband who has woken up and whom I must now face. I couldn't just drop everything and run away with him. All I could do was watch helplessly as he walked, step by step, toward that gate, toward a distant world without me. Tears slid silently down my face, blurring my vision. This was enough. To see him one last time, maybe this was how it had to end. I hardened my heart, biting back the sound that was desperate to escape my lips. But in that exact moment, as if our hearts were connected, Jiyu suddenly turned around in line without any warning. Across the bustling crowd, his gaze found me with pinpoint accuracy. Even from so far away, I could still see the violent shock in his eyes. An instant later, he bolted from the line. He shoved his way through the crowd, running toward me like a madman. I was frozen to the spot, watching as he crossed that sea of people and came to a sudden halt in front of me. His chest was heaving, his breaths coming in ragged gasps. Ruali. He suddenly reached out and pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly it felt like he was trying to crush me into his very bones. You came. Don't leave me alone. Come with me, please? I'm begging you. Ruali, come with me. Jiyu's embrace was scorching, his trembling pleas in my ear threatening to burn away my last shred of reason. The airport announcements coldly repeated flight information, like they were counting down our final moments. Come with me, Ruali. His voice was hoarse with hope. Just this once, let's live for ourselves. Please? I have a stable job abroad. I know I can make you happy. I looked at his red-rimmed eyes, brimming with love. I almost nodded. I was so close to throwing caution to the wind and running away from it all with him. But... Jiyu, I managed to say, my parents, and your brother. His body went rigid. Suddenly, his phone rang. The word father flashed on the screen. He acted as if he didn't hear it, his eyes fixed on me. The phone kept ringing, stubborn and insistent, each chime like a death knell. You should get that, I said. He finally took a deep breath, released me with excruciating slowness, and answered. Dad. The voice on the other end was loud. Where are you? Get back here, now. Ji-sen's condition has taken a turn for the worse, the doctors issued a critical condition notice. He wants to see you, and Ruali, one last time. One last time? Jiyu and I froze. We locked eyes, and I saw the same shock and disbelief in his that he must have seen in mine. There was no time to think. We spun around in near unison and sprinted out of the airport. We sped to the hospital. The oppressive atmosphere inside was suffocating. The Chi family crowded the hallway outside the room. Jiyu's father's face was ashen, and his mother was weeping softly to the side. His father gave Jiyu a complicated look, then said in a hoarse voice, Go on in. He's been waiting for you. Pushing open the door, we were hit by the heavy smell of disinfectant. Ji-sen lay on the bed, his face even more pale and translucent than before, as if he might fade away at any moment. When he saw us, he gave a weak smile, but his eyes were unnervingly clear. His gaze drifted down to my hand, clasped tightly in Chi-Yu's. There was no surprise in his expression, only a flicker of relief. So you two are finally together. His voice was barely a whisper. Chi-Yu and I both started. Chi-Sun struggled to lift a hand, motioning for us to come closer. He looked at Chi-Yu, his eyes full of a complex guilt and the unique gentleness of an older brother. Little you. I'm sorry. I lied to you. Chi-Yu's pupils constricted. Brother, what are you talking about? My car accident wasn't an accident. Every word from Chi-Sun was slow and soft, but they hit us like a sledgehammer. I chose it. Why? Chi-Yu choked out, his grip on my hand tightening violently. I've been sick for a long time. It's terminal. Chi-Sun smiled, a pale, liberated expression. The doctor said I had 6 months, at most. I didn't want to be a burden to Ruoli. And I didn't want to tie her down for life with our engagement. His gaze fell gently on my face. Ruoli, the Chi family has wronged you, but I truly hope you can be happy. Then he turned to Chi-Yu, who was trembling, the color drained from his face. Chi-Sen's eyes were filled with guilt and pleading. I know, you love her. I watched you suffer, watched you struggle. I was a coward. I didn't dare fight the engagement, so I could only do this, to force your hand, to give you two a chance. He was seized by a violent coughing fit, gasping for air for a long moment before he could continue. I've already signed the will, the agreement to dissolve the engagement, and all the property transfer documents. The lawyer will be here soon to handle it. His final gaze fell on Chi-Yu. Don't hate Dad or our family. From now on, just love Ruoli. His voice faded. His eyes slowly closed, a faint, relieved smile on his lips. The heartbeat on the monitor flatlined. Chi-Yu collapsed to his knees by the bed. Fat tears rolled from his red-rimmed eyes, hitting the cold floor. Brother. With his death, Chi-Sun had bought a future for me and Chi-Yu. Chi-Sun's funeral was a low-key affair. The will and agreements he left behind shocked the entire Chi family. All his Chi Corp shares and personal assets were transferred to Chi-Yu. Along with it was a declaration unilaterally annulling our marriage contract, dated even before that farcical wedding. In the most resolute way, he had cleared the final obstacle between us. Father Chi seemed to have aged overnight. He looked at Chi-Yu, his gaze dark. In the end, he just let out a heavy sigh and, for the first time, reached out to pat the shoulder of the son he had never truly acknowledged. From now on, the Chi family is in your hands. His tone was one of resignation. Mrs. Chi didn't cry or cause a scene. She simply watched from a distance, her face pale, before finally turning and leaving in silence. Chi-Yu and I stood before Chi-Sen's headstone. In the photograph, his smile was gentle. Chi-Yu laid down the white daisies and held my hand tightly, standing before the grave for a long time. Brother, thank you. His voice was low and hoarse, heavy with a solemn promise. I will take care of the Chi family, and Ruoli. As we left the cemetery, the setting sun bathed the world in a warm, golden light. We didn't drive. We just held hands and walked slowly. Do you still hate me? He asked suddenly, his fingertips tightening slightly around my hand. I stopped and turned to look at him. The sunset was reflected in the depths of his eyes, illuminating the pain that hadn't yet fully faded, and the burgeoning, cautious love that lay beneath it. I do. I nodded. Just as the light in his eyes dimmed, I added softly, I hate that you're a liar, and I hate that you made me so miserable. I lifted our clasped hands, looking at the new matching rings on our fingers, glowing warmly in the sunset. But, I said, looking into his eyes, I love this liar even more. He pulled me into his arms, his embrace tightening as if he were holding a long-lost treasure. His body trembled slightly, his hot breath catching in the crook of my neck. Ruoli, he said, his voice muffled and choked with emotion. Let's go home. Okay. Later, many rumors began to circulate in Nanjing about the new head of the Chi family and the eldest daughter of the Wen family. Some said that CEO Chi was ruthless in business but exceptionally gentle with his wife, whom he brought to every social engagement, their fingers always intertwined. Others said they had once seen the ever-stoic CEO Chi, late on a rainy night, giving his wife a piggyback ride home when her feet grew tired from her high heels. Still others said that every year, on the anniversary of Chi Sen's death, CEO Chi and his wife could be seen bringing daisies to the cemetery, where they would stay for a very long time. We made our home on a mountainside overlooking the city lights. Tonight, he holds me from behind as he always does, his chin resting gently in my hair. Ruoli. It's nothing. He tightened his arms around me, his voice low and steady. I just missed you. I turned and kissed his lips. Outside the window, the city lights glittered, but in our world, there was only the sound of our steady breaths. The nights are long, but love is a light. From dawn to dusk, until our hair turns gray.